Welcome back to another edition of Behind the Mask. We are excited to have John Scanzano again. John, you are the first coach we've ever had, and then the first coach we've ever had twice. So I wanted to bring you back. I wanted to get in touch with you and bring you back because of this prep school for 2020 baseball graduates that Scanzano Sports Center will be initiating this fall. Just right off the bat, tell us about that. I know there's a lot of people excited about it. You got a great response on social media. I know the umpires are excited about it. What's going on with it?
Yeah, it's going great. I mean, it's designed for 2020 graduates. A way to kind of help them with what's going on with this pandemic, and the big thing is kind of to really help the 2020s get back into the class where they're supposed to be. I mean, a lot of these young men, are going to school now with, huge freshman classes. I mean, I've heard of some colleges that, had 16 kids, last year coming as freshmen and maybe 18 coming in this year as freshmen. Well, that's a class of 34 now, and that's not fair for some of these guys to go into that environment and try and compete. I mean, you're competing against a full team now just in your freshman class, and that's going to be with you for 4 years. So, the biggest purpose is really to help these 2020s, not just with, it's not just for kids that didn't get recruited and kind of needed this senior year. It's for them, but it's also for the young men that, might not want to go into that class with 34 kids and might want to do a prep year where, they can either reopen their recruiting or, stay committed to the school they're with, but then go back there the following year and now have 4 years of eligibility where they can truly compete for 4 years. I mean, I have some young men that I know of that, they were excited to go to school because they had 13 seniors graduating. So, they're thinking, hey, I'm going to come in, 13 seniors just graduated. Now I have a chance to compete and play right away. Well, now those 13 seniors are back, and the freshman class and junior class and sophomore class are all back. So now what are you going into? You know what I mean? And coaches are being honest with kids. I've told a lot of these young men to have, serious talks with their coaches for college for the next year to kind of find out what's going on. But it's also a numbers game too. You can kind of figure it out, with 13 seniors coming back, playing time's going to be at a minimum. And, that's going to be tough for some of these young men, especially now, you're going to be going to college. You might not play your freshman year. You might not play your sophomore year. This is going to kind of help them go in as a freshman and just in one class, and now they can compete for 4 years.
Let me ask, what's the day-to-day? I mean, do you have these plans yet? What the day-to-day is going to look like for these guys? What does the fall curriculum or weekly activities look like for these guys?
So, yeah, you're actually a little bit ahead of the game. I'm going to be putting that out tonight. All the literature, all the information that kind of breaks that down. But a day-to-day, the school is going to, or the academy is going to run from September to May, probably end, a little bit before Memorial Day, kind of like the college season ends. You'll be at the facility at the academy 5 days a week. So a day would look like come in the morning. You'll have 2 classes. You'll have an SAT prep class, because one of the big things that people need to understand is this is designed for 2020 graduates. This isn't for someone that wants to reclassify as a 2021 or something like that. This is not going to be like a 5th year program, or, these kids are not going to play with the high school team at Kings or something like that. This is going to be their own.
This is for the current seniors that lost this high school season.
Exactly. This is for the current seniors that are graduates of high school. Like, they will have had to graduate. They're not going to come and say, oh, well, I want to retake a math or retake an English. That's not it. The only benefit they will have is to take their SAT prep classes again, take SATs again, hopefully get a higher score, maybe get some more academic money, maybe get into some schools that they couldn't get into before. So that's going to be the main class. The main class is SAT prep. The second class is going to be a sports performance class, a mental coach class, where they're going to be with a, sports performance mental coach, where, they're going to be learning how to handle pressure situations, how to handle, situations in a game, or to prepare yourself, or what happens, how to handle a situation where pressure's starting to build up and they don't know how to handle it. Well, that's going to be the sports performance mental coach class. So that's the second class. The third class we've talked about is kind of a, maybe a 1 day a week class where we're going to kind of put a curriculum together, and we have someone that's actually put curriculums together, and they're going to make a class basically on baseball IQ, teaching the game of baseball, learning, all the situations. So now when they argue with you, they might be right, if they know the game. So they'll be able to question.
Maybe Rich.
Exactly. They might be able to question you two guys and be like, hey, page 476 in the book says this, this, and this. So who knows? But and then after their classes during the day, they'll be in the morning. Right after that, they will go to strength and conditioning with Garnell Peters of Athletic Solutions, who we have a partnership with, and that's where they'll be doing building muscle, building size, working on speed, working on agility, working on sport-specific training too, as far as baseball-specific training. I mean, there'll be different periods where, hey, we might be working on muscle in the beginning, getting some size, or maybe over the winter months. And then as it gets closer to the season, it becomes more sports performance related. So they'll be with him possibly 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And then after they would do the strength and conditioning program, that's when they'll go right to skill development. Well, they'll obviously have lunch in between there. And then skill development, where they're doing drills. It's going to be just drills with our trainers, the Jeff Singers, John Murphy, myself, Bo Gray, Tom Arnone, a lot of the trainers that have been with us a long time. My brother, he'll be putting all the training curriculum together, all the drills we do. Mike's excellent at that. So they'll do that for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. And then on top of that, they're going to have practice with their coach. We're interviewing right now for a coach. We're looking to bring someone in with a lot of experience that, because this is basically a college freshman baseball team. My plan is to stay with the high school team. I'll still be coaching at Kings, and my brother with his family just doesn't have the time to do it, but we'll be involved in the fall. But come spring, it's going to be a head coach that's going to be able to handle, helping with the recruiting, helping with the scheduling, helping with the transportation, and, all the ins and outs. So it's going to be run, just as a college program would be run. So they're going to be prepared for next year. When they do go into their freshman year, they're going to be prepared better than anyone because they'll have really experienced it this year. As far as the baseball itself, we'll have 2 seasons. We'll have a fall season, which we're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15, maybe 20 games, where we'll play, plan will be to play scrimmage junior colleges, play some college JV programs, especially now because with all these students staying in school and with everything that's going on in college, there's a lot of colleges are going to have JV programs now. So it's going to be, we've already talked to a few about playing games, and they're all on board. I mean, why not? They got a 2020 team coming in with a lot of kids that are uncommitted that they can recruit, that they can look at and maybe find someone that they want to jump on. So that'll be in the fall. Then come spring season, we won't be playing junior colleges obviously in the spring, but we'll be playing all the preps, all the prep programs around Delaware, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. And then we'll also have a travel trip that we'll go down to south, like through North Carolina, South Carolina, down to Florida, maybe play at IMG Academy, put some games together down there, play some local colleges down there, the JV teams. I've talked to some coaches down south in the Carolinas. They're all on board. Hey, yeah, come down here, play, work out, whatever you want to do. So, it's a great opportunity for, like I said, all the different level young men, whether it be they didn't get recruited or they want to reopen their recruiting, or they just want to get another year where they can go into a freshman year as a true freshman, basically.
John, let me ask you something. You said that there'll be training at the facility. Is that at Nagorski or indoors at Scanzano?
It'll be both. You'll have indoor training, every day. And then, practices and training will be at Nagorski too. That's the great thing about this field. The partnership we have here is we can use it at any time. And that's the big thing about being a 2020 graduate is they'll be using it before high school or anybody else is out here. We'll be using it during the day or in the morning or something like that.
Now, you
So
mentioned something about the SATs. Are these kids have already taken their SATs and they're going to
yeah,
have an opportunity to do it again?
yeah, they'll have an opportunity. They'll all have taken their SATs. They'll all have graduated, and they'll all be qualified for NCAA, qualified by the NCAA. But with the SAT, you can take that, over as many times as you can. So even if, some kids might have scored in a 1050 or an 1100, well, now with a prep class taking it again, you might get a 1200. Who knows? Get a higher score.
Who's teaching the SAT course?
We'll have proctors. We have, we're partnering, we're talking to Kings, partnering with them about using, maybe a classroom or the computer lab and using some of the teachers, maybe the English and math teachers to help proctor the program. Or we will hire a straight proctor. We have some good relationships with some high academic people that have expressed some interest in being in there, and they can cover everything.
Now, John, I've seen some of this social media interaction here, and it's been outstanding. What you guys have to be happy with. To me, it seems like there's a possibility you could have more interest than one baseball team's worth. What do you do in that situation? Are you open to having multiple teams?
Yes, we are, looking into a possibility of having multiple teams. We would be looking. One thing we want to do is, bring in. First of all, obviously the right kids, right families, but also, I'm not going to bring in 10 third basemen just to bring in 10 third basemen. We're going to have to treat it where, you might have only 5 outfielders that you can rotate and, 4 middle infielders and corner and catcher, 2 catchers. So, we're going to do it like that. At first that's going to be the plan, to have a roster of about 20 kids. Probably the majority of them will be pitchers, obviously, some pitchers coming in. But then if we start to grow over that, where we're getting a lot of interest, yes, we will have 2 teams. Or,
John, you have, within your group, some of the kids have already applied to college they were expecting to go, through the full term here before everything got canceled. So some of these kids, as I understand it, would have applied and possibly have been accepted to go to college, correct?
Yes.
Are they going to continue to go there, or is their decision may be affected by the overall number of other people who are going to be there?
Well, that's going to be a decision that they're going to have to make. Some players, obviously, if they do this, they'll talk to their coaches for next year. And I briefly talked to a handful of college coaches that kind of, basically said that, some of their players, if they did do a post-grad year, would actually help them in a number sense. And then they got a player coming in the following year where, he's bigger, stronger, more developed, faster, baseball ready for college. And now they have 4 years of eligibility with him. Instead of a young man that they might have been looking at as coming in and really contributing this year, but with everything that happened, with the seniors coming back, and now you have all these grad students, transferring all over the place. Well, it's a numbers game. That young man, can still, they're going to give him the opportunity to compete, but now he's competing against a bigger number. So if he decides, hey, I'm going to prep a year, coach, a lot of these schools have said, yeah, we'll still honor it, the commitment, and look to bring him in the following year.
Are a lot of these guys, have you had many guys who are like second guessing their decision?
Yes. I mean, and that's kind of where we kind of started this from, is talking to a couple of, our 2020s in our program. When this all happened, I had some parents reach out to me kind of like concerned, like, hey, what do we do? Should we go to junior college instead? Should we stay? Should we go? What should we do? And that's what kind of, got the ball rolling with this prep school, to give them a third option, give them another option to, either possibly reopen their recruiting. Like I said, you're going to have 3 types of kids. You're going to have the young man who was really depending on the senior year for recruiting purposes, didn't get to play. That's going to be probably the biggest number of young men that come because they want to get recruited. And, you know, we're proud of what we do for recruiting and helping young men, but not only now are they going to get recruited in the spring, they're going to get recruited in the fall. You know, I have college coaches, which the fall is an open period, that have already said to me, hey, when you start training, when you start your practices, when you start your scrimmages, let us know. We want to come see these kids in the fall. So you have that group of young men. The second group you'll have will be the young men that say, you know what, I don't want to go into college with a class of 34 kids or 30 young men, 30 players and have to compete against that every year. I'm going to reopen my recruiting. I'm going to decommit, reopen, play there a year, and let's see what we can do with them. And then you're going to have the young men that, stay committed to the college and have a conversation with their college coach and say, Coach, I'm going to go to prep school for a year, and I'm looking to come back to you as a freshman next year. And like I said, a lot of coaches would be excited about that because it helps them with the numbers game.
Now, some of these kids could have been accepted to more than one school, possibly 3 schools, and they picked school A, but now the school A is going to have 34 players. They may back up their choice and consider their second and third options. Is that correct?
Yes, that's a possibility. Yes, absolutely.
John, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, but the big thing that we're telling these young men is have this conversation with your college coach. Call your coach, talk to them about what's coming in, what's going on, who's transferring in, what seniors are coming back, and be honest and find out and ask their coaches to be honest with them, and from talking to a lot of the coaches that, I know have some of our players, they've already said, like, look, we're going to be honest with these guys. We're going to honor what we're doing, but we're going to be straightforward with them and let them know, because in the long run, it's what's best for them, for the young men.
As long as they're honest with them, because they could still encourage them to come, but not fully disclose that they're going to be playing against some, superstar guys coming from other schools.
That's a decision, and like I said, you got to read between the lines sometime. Like you said, the coach that has 13, seniors returning or have a class of 30-something coming in, they're going to tell the guys, hey, you can come compete, but also you have to read between the lines. And, it's a number of things.
John, what are some of the schools that these kids that have already, they reached out, they've already been accepted? So if this thing hadn't occurred, if this pandemic hadn't occurred, they'd be on their way to a college. What are some of the names? Can you disclose?
I don't want to disclose any of the schools because I've had some conversations with players that, they haven't had that conversation with their coach yet to talk about it. But, it's schools up and down the East Coast, that kids are committed to locally and as far down south as Florida, so
it's got to be a stressful situation for a lot of these kids.
It is, and that's why we're trying to do this. We're trying to help them alleviate some of the stress and, kind of give them another opportunity that puts them in the best situation for them as a student athlete, as a college athlete, as a college baseball player.
I find this whole situation very interesting, what you guys are trying to do. And, when you come on here, we usually bust each other's chops, and even in person. But I have a lot of respect for what you and your brother do for kids. And I don't think – I guess my question really is, if you didn't have a respected brand inside the travel baseball industry, if you didn't have a respected brand with coaches in the recruiting world, I don't think this is something that would be taken as seriously as it is. And the response to it has been great. But, how much do you think that you – basically the hard work you guys have put in to build that trust and the brand you guys have, that will equate to this being successful? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I kind of understand what you're saying. And that's my brother and I, we try and put these young men first. We want whatever we do, it's really trying to give them the best opportunity and put them in the best situation, whether they're coming up from 8 years old and up, we want to help the families and the kids and We say all the time, our slogan is, dream big. And we want to help these kids dream, and we want to help them reach their dreams. And but we also want to protect them too, and help them in any way we can. I think a big part of it, yes, having the brand and having the name out there as good guys and guys that, put the players first. I think that's going to help us. And we're just trying to be honest and do what we can to help. I mean, we're not trying to, and I know that, a lot of people are asking about cost and stuff like that. Our cost is going to be down. It's not going to be for what we're going to offer with the professional trainers, with the strength and conditioning, with the classes, with the baseball schedule, with the coaches that we're bringing in. We're looking at, we don't have an exact number yet. We're still working on that, but it's not going to exceed, 12 to 15,000, for a year of that. You're going to be getting a lot. You look at some of these other prep schools in the area and you're talking 52, 57, 60. No, we're not going to be anywhere near that. And again, this is something that, it could be something that takes off and it builds, and it could be something that if it's 1 year and done, we don't know. But, we want to help these 2020s and, help the kids down the road coming up, because now you got your 21s and your 22s and your 23s coming up. Well, this post-grad year could be good for them to jump in next year. The 21s jump in the program next year, the 22s the following year, because, you don't want to see, a lot of people talk about reclassifying and things like that. If that starts happening, things get crazy. So this is a way that you can finish out your 4 years at a high school of your choice, and then have a third option coming out of high school.
I think
John,
this is one of those sort of responses to this pandemic that, obviously we're all in uncharted waters here, but this is one of the options to combat this that I find the most palatable for guys in their senior year. Like, a lot of the options haven't been great. I think this will be a great sense of relief for seniors who literally don't know what to do at this point. They didn't get a chance to play. They didn't get recruited, and they're sitting at home right now, and they can't really leave the house. This is, to me, a relief to have this type of option on the board with qualified baseball people to surround yourself with, to almost – you're obviously going to – I don't want to say lose a year, but a year that you could have been going to college. But this is something that will be productive instead.
Yeah, and that's – you just hit the nail on the head. That is the whole purpose of this program, is to give these guys that opportunity to way to fight this pandemic and everything that's going on with the NCAA's decisions. And, everything trickles downhill. The NCAA made the decision about the seniors. Well, that trickled to the junior class all the way down into high school. So this is a way for those 2020s to almost have a senior year, kind of, but be able to put themselves in that situation where they're going into a freshman class that is just them, that they were supposed to be in.
Go ahead, Rich.
John, when is day one?
Day one would be, we're looking at the week after high school would start. High school, I believe, usually starts that first or second week in September. We would probably start that following, like that midweek, middle of the month in September. That would be the plan, to start there, and we would end in May. Let the high schools get started, let them get going, and then, the postgrads would start right after that.
Now, I'm impressed with how quickly you have seemed to have gotten this whole thing together. This doesn't seem like a minor undertaking. I mean, you've accumulated staff, made arrangements for curriculum, for facilities and things like that. My hat is off to you for having done so much in what seems to be a very short period of time.
I appreciate that. The reason why is because this is actually the second time I'm involved in a program like this. I mean, first off, when I came out of high school, I went to a prep school. I went to Milford Academy up in Connecticut. So I kind of got familiar with the process back then. I went up there and, played football and baseball, and actually played basketball just for fun in the winter. But that helped me get my SAT score up, because when I graduated, I didn't have the SAT score that I needed to be eligible back then. So I went to prep, got the SAT score, and then doors opened for me. But then you want to go back about, I'd say 10 or 11 years ago, I was the athletic director of a school called Living Faith Christian Academy, which was another Christian private school. And we started a postgraduate program there called Apex Academies. And that is pretty much the model that we're using, I'm sorry, I hate saying but my brother and I are using to put this together. We had some tremendous, the Morris twins who play in the NBA. They attended Apex Academy. And that helped them a year before they went to Kansas. And then they went to, obviously the league. So, I'm basically just kind of piggybacking off of what we did years ago with Apex and Living Faith. So that's why I was able to kind of put it together quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing because I've been involved over the years in putting big kinds of things, events together. And it takes, I was the chairman of my 50th high school reunion. It took me 18 months to organize it.
All right.
So
yes.
I think, if you're in the market for a SAT proctor, I think Rich might have a resume for you.
All right, we'll take it. We'll take it.
We'll do, John. If you could, we'll wait for you, obviously, to share all the details later, hopefully tonight or whenever you get it out there. But we'll obviously do everything we can to promote this as well. I think it's a great program. That when high school seniors hear about this will be a great relief. But we want to transition a little bit here. We could probably talk longer about this, but we have some more questions from our mailbag from people submitted, and we'll transition to that. Danny from Marlton, New Jersey, and some of this you already answered, but if you want to add anything or something you missed, feel free to put it in there. My son is a senior in high school and will not be able to play this season, obviously. How can your prep school program help him, and what is the cost?
Well, I think we covered that. And if he's a young man that hasn't been recruited and was really trying to use this senior year for recruitment and get in front of coaches where coaches want to come see him, number one, that's the number one thing that's going to benefit him is he's going to now be partnered with us and all our relationships to help him get recruited. His recruitment's going to start in the fall. And he's going to play a fall and, like I said, a spring schedule, and he's going to train and develop and, be bigger, stronger, faster, and more developed going into college next year. And our goal will be for a young man like that is to help him find the right school and get committed. And again, like I said, with the cost, we're finalizing that. We're kind of doing that. We've started some interviews, like potential student interviews. We started that this week. I have 4 scheduled for this week where we're meeting with a student and parent. That's where we're trying to hammer down the cost, but it won't be over 15, and it's going to be probably between 10 and 15, somewhere in that ballpark once we crunch all the numbers.
Which is low for prep school standards.
Well, yes, exactly. One of the things that I want to be clear about is we're not doing this as a huge business opportunity. We're trying to, this is really everything we do is, kind of putting this together to really help these 2020s in a tough time.
John, let me ask you a question before I jump to the mailbag. Have you got, as part of your marketing plan, have you gotten in touch with a series of schools to let them know what you're doing, because they may very well benefit by what you're doing, preparing kids that they might otherwise be interested in? I mean, have you got like a target list of people you want to reach out to? Like even in the Delaware Valley, there's all sorts of schools that might be looking for baseball players. There, as we speak today, when they woke up this morning, they have no idea what the Scanzano brothers are up to.
Well, a lot of our relationships, they do know. This wasn't something that just sprung up last week. My brother and I talked about this back in February when this all started, when the pandemic was going on and the high school season, it was talked about getting canceled, and the NCAA was making these rulings. We started this process back then and, reached out to a lot of our connections to get some feedback from college coaches to see what they thought. And they, thought it was a great idea and a great opportunity. And, they absolutely want to come recruit. I mean, I know schools from down south that are like waiting for us to start this, and they're, hey, we'll come up and check it out. As a college coach, it's great for them because you have a young man that's going to do another year. He's going to be a year older. He's going to be stronger. He's going to be bigger. He's going to be developed more. And he's coming in really, if you think about it, he's coming in as a sophomore now instead of a freshman. And he's going to have the body of a sophomore. And he's going to be able to hopefully contribute more. So you really got to look at it as they're recruiting a 21 right now, not necessarily a 2020. Yeah. They're recruiting someone that's going to be a 2021 graduate. So, yes, there's been a lot of interest.
Yeah, I think these kids are not going to be staying overnight anyway. They're going to stay in their own homes and just come in every day. Is that correct?
Yes. We've gotten calls from, I have a meeting with a young man from North Jersey this week. I had some calls from Pennsylvania. So this is going to be opened up to the tri-state area. So we have some plans, have some host families that we've talked to, where a student might, if they're from, 2 hours away, well, during the week, they may stay with a host family. That would be an additional cost separate from the program. But that's our plan, is to be able to house them. So, they'll all drive, but we're not going to ask a young man to drive 2 hours a day back and forth. So we'll be looking at host families.
What about staying at some of the local hotels if you can work out some sort of deal?
That's not something we've really thought of yet, but it could be,
especially if you get like, 3 or 4 guys who jump in a room.
Well, we've kind of talked about that too. If you have kids traveling, we're opening this up to a lot of people, and even some, we've talked to some major league guys that might have a guy that, because of what happened with the draft, he might need a year somewhere. So, hopefully this will open doors for a lot of places. But, we'll talk to possibly some of those extended stay hotels, see what we could do there. But also maybe talk to short-term rentals or something like that, an apartment or a housing or something. Again, these guys are all basically college freshmen, so they'd be living on their own anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of options to overcome some of those distance hurdles that will certainly be beneficial. Rich, question 2.
Yeah, question 2 out of the mailbag, coming from a gentleman named Irvin from West Deptford. Question is, did you always use Tri-State Elite Umpires Association and John Gallante for your umpires? And part 2, if not, what made you go to the Tri-State Elite Umpires Association? What was the attack?
Well, when I first started, no, I did not I didn't even know John or about TSE at the time. I used another organization. And the one thing that made me switch was, when I first took over King's Christian's program, like I've told people, we were not very good. We were not very good, but we were losing 20-0 in the first inning of my first game as coach of King's Christian and had no outs. So we would probably still be playing that game right now. But the one thing that happened was I started to notice that because we weren't one of the, well-known high schools or baseball programs, they kept sending the same umpire to us. I think it was like 4 games in a row, I had the same home plate umpire. And I kind of was like, what's kind of going on here? Okay, we might not be as competitive yet, but we're going to get there. And then in year 2, where we were a little bit better, I started to see it again, where we were getting the same umps. And that's when I, happened to meet John. And we talked about some things, and I switched over. And the thing that was great about John is, that was one of the things I shared with him, and he sent new umpires every game, and good umpires. I felt bad for some, in the beginning, I felt bad for some of the umpires that came and did our games, but you know what? They were professional, they were respectful. And, whether it was a high profile team or our team at that time, they treated it the same way. So that was my biggest thing on why I switched, is because I was looking for an organization to kind of, even though we weren't as good, but still respect the program and treat us like don't just treat us like, a secondhand school or something like that. So that was the big thing why I made the move.
I think, when you mentioned that 20-0 game, I remember doing a game with Kurt Widener over at that field that you have over there in that industrial park.
Our other field, yes.
And I was wondering, could that have been the game? Because I think the score was 20-0 in the first inning.
Well, if we were winning, no, it wasn't the game. If we were, when we first started, we were losing on that end, and I don't think it would have been you or Kirk, because I didn't have TSE for the first 2 years. It was kind of in I want to say the end of the second years when we, got on board with TSE.
Actually, I stand corrected. I think your team was ahead 20-0 at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
they've turned the corner there, and what's funny, John, you guys probably still deal with it to this day, but like anything with Christian school at the end kind of gets a bad rap athletically. And I tell my guys all the time, they think they're getting King's Christian school assignment. That's like a punishment for the day. Like, you better be ready to go getting these guys, because they're going to come out there and play. You guys play a true powerhouse schedule, which I give you credit for doing it. I don't think a lot of coaches out there would build a schedule like that, where you may not have your best pitcher to go against some of these top-tier teams. And, I've had to tell our umpires all the time who've never seen you guys play, you got to make sure you're ready to go here. You get a King's Christian Audubon, King's Christian Glassboro. You guys schedule everybody. And from where you guys started to where you guys are now, it's really an awesome thing to see.
Yeah, that was something that we needed to overcome, because you're absolutely right, John. When you hear the Christian school at the end, a lot of people think, this is just, it's not going to be competitive. It's not going to be this. And unfortunately, that's the way it is up here in New Jersey and up in the Mid-Atlantic region. You have to go down south. And then when you hear the Christian school at the end of it, you're like, oh God, this is a powerhouse coming. When you go down to the Tennessees and the Alabamas and the Georgias and but up here it was kind of changing that mindset. There aren't many Christian schools out there that do what we do at King's. And we're working on that, just not with baseball, with soccer, with basketball. Our girls basketball program has been tremendous over the past couple of years. Our boys program has been good. Our boys and girls soccer programs have been good. And, I'm hoping that part of what the baseball team has done is helped bring those teams forward and kind of grown. But, that was one of my biggest things, was to prove to people that a Christian school, a small Christian school, could compete with anybody.
Yeah,
you guys have certainly done that. Rich, question 3.
Yeah, question 3, coming from Jeffrey from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Actually, he's posing questions to both you and John Gallante. John Scanzano, what is your biggest weakness as a coach?
Oh, that's a good one.
And the follow-up question for John Gallante is, what is your biggest weakness as an umpire or umpire assigner? Scanzano, go first.
This will give me time to think about my answer.
Yeah, right. You're lucky, John. The first thing that pops into my head would be, I need a strong, and it's funny, I heard Kevin Snyder say this last night while I was watching his broadcast. Being the administrative piece, like making sure the book is done right, making sure that, scores are called in, or making sure that, the umpires are paid, or, that's where I would say my weakness is. I'm like an idea guy. Like, he said he needs to hire someone as a full-time administrative assistant. I would love to have that. I got blessed to have a tremendous assistant coach in Greg Malakovich, who started King's Christian program with me from day one. And he is one of the most organized guys I've ever met. And that helped me tremendously, because he would pick up the slack or pick up the pieces that I dropped. So I would say my biggest thing would be the administrative piece of being a head baseball coach. If I didn't have Greg, I don't think the Kings program would be where it is right now, because he really, really helped pick up the pieces and, keep things organized and, again, make sure the umpires are paid and get the sheets done and stuff like that. So that's what I would say.
John Gallante, the biggest weakness you have as an umpire or an assigner?
Yeah. Honestly, as an umpire, probably I'm pretty calm, cool, and collected on the field, which I think is a good thing. But I think it could be taken, and I've even gotten some college evaluations that it could be perceived as laziness, even though I think I'm the opposite of lazy on the field. But you see a lot of umpires that are loud and yell all the time. To me, that when it's not absolutely necessary. So me being kind of calm and cool, I think it can come across as either arrogant or lazy, which I'm working on as a body language thing. But, once you get to a certain point in umpiring, everything is kind of tiny little improvements you have to make and self-evaluation and being able to deal with critiques. As an assigner, it's probably having the ability to get a bad performance from an umpire out of my head quickly and realizing they have the ability to improve. So if I see somebody at a training with, John's program or whatever, and he really has a bad day, that doesn't necessarily mean they're an awful umpire forever. And, maybe it was a bad day. Maybe they have to fix something. But, that kind of sticks in my head for a long time. So I got to get a little bit better at that. But that was a pretty good question.
Yeah, how's it going?
Last
Agreed.
question for John. Barry from Ariel, New Jersey. Tri-State Elite Umpires Association appears to use your facility for their training quite a bit. That'd be true. Have you learned anything about umpiring from watching them train so often and hearing the feedback of instructors to umpires?
Yeah, actually, yes, I have. And, it's great having a relationship with TSC that you guys use our facility. But I have, caught myself during, our older kids, our, 16 and 17 U teams always practice on Sunday nights, and we work out on Sunday nights, and that's the nights that Tri-State Elite would be in. So, I would definitely sometimes lean over and listen to what was going on and actually ask some questions, or if I heard something, and, ask John some questions, or Kurt or Rich. So, yes, I've definitely learned some things. And, even when partnering with them during the, our workouts, whether the umpires were doing something, yes, I've definitely learned a few things.
Great. You know what I think is fascinating when you guys see that, and then you can go to a tournament or whatever, and when you could see something clearly being done out there, no matter what who the umpire or organization they're from, you can see something that's clearly not being done correctly. As you've heard it from us, I think that can give you guys a little perspective as coaches on maybe how to navigate that day with an umpire.
Absolutely, yes.
So, John, thanks for coming on again for the second time. We're going to obviously Rich has a question for you.
I have one last question unrelated to.
I have one comment too before we hang up.
John, is that a Rider University sweatshirt?
This is Rider Wrestling. Yes, Rider Wrestling. John Hangy, the head coach of Rider University, Rider Wrestling, is a good friend of mine and my brother's, and he had given this to me. He's done a tremendous job with the Rider Wrestling program. He's probably one of the, from what I see, I've learned a lot from him as far as how to coach his kids and how he does things, because wrestlers are a different breed. But he's, put Rider University Wrestling on the map as a top 25, team in the country. So, I wear this proudly. Even though I never wrestled, I wear it proudly.
They're the Bronx, right?
The Bronx, yes. Yeah.
I thought the question was going to be about the Fu Man mustache.
Yes.
That we're seeing here. How much longer do we have to deal with this thing?
We have to deal with it until I step on the field and coach a baseball game.
Oh, dear God.
So the way this happened, it's actually looking really good right now. Okay? And you keep making fun of it, John,
John, you ought to go for a big razor commercial.
Yeah, right. Well, so what happened was, a joke, Jeff Singer, who works out our facility and trains for us, a while back, I had shaved it in as a joke and shaved it right off, but I had taken a picture and I showed it to him. He was like, you don't have the guts to do it. So then one night, I don't know, I was bored. I did it again, and saw him, and I wore it to the facility. Well, all the Kings Christians players saw it, a couple seniors, Masami Yamauchi and Chase Cooper, They were like, Coach, we like it. You got to keep it. You got to keep it. And then this whole thing happened, and I said, well, I'm going to keep it until I coach you guys again, and we step back on the field. So I have to honor that. So as much as I'd like to shave it, because I got to be honest with you, I would never suggest someone keeping one of these because it is so hard to shape up and not mess it up. It's brutal. I look forward to getting on the baseball field so I can shave this off or grow a beard back over it, you know. But it's kind of grown on me a little bit too, though. I got a compliment yesterday at Rita's Water Ice. The lady that was making the water ice was like, "Wow, you keep that really good. That looks good on you." So
she does work off tips as well. She does work off tips.
She does work off tips. But by the way, John, I heard you make a comment last night about it, but I forgot to tell you. Ernie called me. Bert wants his haircut back. So when you get a chance, can you take care of him for me? My guy Snyder. Snyder took a shot at me last night. I love that guy, close friend, but Kevin No-Show Snyder. I mean, that guy, you know, all the times he's supposed to come up to the facility, came up with a new excuse every time. So,
Kevin was a good interview, and if I could get a haircut, I would. Go ahead, Rich.
I just want to wish you lots of luck in your prep program. It sounds exciting. I know you're going to do good things. The best to you, your staff, and your incoming players.
I appreciate it, Rich. Thank you very much. And, you know, I look forward to having TSE out there umpiring our games.
We're looking forward to it, man. All our guys are excited. Wish you guys a lot of luck. Be safe, man.
Appreciate it. Have a good one.